This is section 5.2, equations in slope-intercept form continued. In this section, you'll be given all kinds of information and you'll have to write the equation in slope-intercept form. If you think back in the past, they gave you the slope and they gave you the intercept and you had to write it in the form. You know, in the most complicated case, they probably had you look at a graph or write it or had it the point in function form, and you had to write it in slope-intercept form. That's pretty simple. Now they're going to give you all different kinds of information, and you have to figure out how to write it in slope-intercept form. Usually we follow these steps when we write something in slope-intercept form. First, we identify the slope. Second, we find the y-intercept. And third, we write the equation in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. I'd really like you to stick to this form and make sure you have the work for each step in your homework, on your quizzes, on your tests. The more you do this and keep to this form, the easier it will be. So please just try to repeat doing it over and over again. It should almost become rote to you. Identify slope, find the y-intercept, write the equation. Identify the slope, find the y-intercept, write the equation. Now in the first case, we're going to write an equation given a slope and a point. So in this example, it says write an equation for a line with a slope of -4 that goes through the point -1, 3. In step 1, we see that the slope is -4. That was given. Just write it down. In step 2, you have to calculate the y-intercept. To calculate the y-intercept, you're going to substitute the given x and y coordinates to solve for b. So we have a point there, -1, 3, and we're going to substitute that in our form. What I usually do is write the equation in slope-intercept form with just the slope first. So I have y equals -4x plus b. And then I substitute the given values of 3 and -1. So I'm going to put 3 equals -4 times -1 plus b. So 3 equals 4 plus b. So b equals -1. Then I write the equation. So the equation is y equals -4x minus 1. Let's try another one just like that. Again, you're going to be given the slope and a point. So we're going to write the equation for a line whose slope is 2 that goes through 6, 3. First step, identify the slope. The slope is 2. Step 2, find the y-intercept. To find the y-intercept, you write the slope-intercept, equation with the slope in it. So it's y equals 2x plus b, and then you substitute the values of the given point. The point is 6, 3. So we're going to substitute that in. 3 equals 2 times 6 plus b. So 3 equals 12 plus b. When you subtract 12 from both sides, you get -9 equals b. We now have the slope and the y-intercept, so you use those in your slope-intercept form to write the equation in step 3. Y equals 2x minus 9. Given any slope and any point, you should be able to write an equation for a line. So I should be able to throw out a number for a slope, whether it's -1/2 or 2 or 498, and any other point, and you should be able to write the equation for the line. You need to practice this. The second option, given 2 points, write an equation for the line. Now, you've sort of tried this already in 5.1, but one of the points was the y-intercept. It's not so easy this time, okay? You're going to follow the same plan of action that we did in the previous slide, but your starting information is a little bit different. So again, here's your plan. Step 1, find the slope. Step 2, find the y-intercept. Step 3, write the equation. So let's start. If you want to find the equation for the line that has these 2 points on it, -2, 5 and 2, -1, the first thing we do is find the slope. Slope is a change in y over the change in x. So I'm going to calculate the slope. -1 minus 5 divided by 2 minus a -2. That's 2 plus 2. So it's negative 6 over 4, and that equals negative 3/2. So now we have the slope. In step 2, you have to find the y-intercept using what we learned in the previous slide, a slope and a point. You have the slope, and you have 2 points as options here. You can choose either point. It doesn't matter. You'll get exactly the same answer for B. I usually look at the numbers and find what's easier. If there aren't negatives on one of the coordinates, I usually use the positive values that way. In this case, it looks like the simpler point to me would be 2, -1. I won't have to fool with a 5. So that's what I'm going to use. So here we put y equals negative 3/2 x, that's the slope that we already calculated, plus b. I'm going to substitute in the 2 for x and -1 for y, the point we were given. -1 equals negative 3/2 times 2 plus b. That's -1 equals negative 3 plus b, so b equals 2. Now we have the slope and the intercept, so we can definitely write the equation in slope-intercept form. So the equation becomes y equals negative 3/2 x plus 2. Now, this isn't hard, but it takes a lot of steps and a lot of work and a lot of calculations to reach your answer. You need to write down all these steps as you go along, and you can see how your mistakes can just multiply here, because if you calculated the slope incorrectly in step 1, then when you plug your point in step 2, your intercept's going to be wrong too. So you're going to be off a lot just because of that mistake at the beginning. That's why it's crucial that you have your work down through every step, so if you make a mistake at the end, if you have the wrong equation, we can trace it back and figure out what you did wrong. Let's try another one. We're going to find the equation of the line with the following 2 points. 1, 4, 5, 6. First step, find the slope. 6 minus 4 over 5 minus 1 is 2 over 4. That can be reduced to 1/2. To find the y-intercept, we write the equation in slope-intercept form with the slope. So we have y equals 1/2 x plus b. We're going to substitute either one of those points in. As I said before, I usually take the one that I think is simpler. I think it'd be easier to work with a 1 and a 4 than a 5 and a 6, but either one will work, so it's up to you which one to use. I'm going to use 1, 4. So 4 equals 1/2 times 1 plus b. That's 7/2 equals b. Now I have the slope and the intercept. I substitute them in and write the equation for the line. So y equals 1/2 x plus 7/2. In the next case, you're going to be given the points but in function form. So given the function form points, you have to write the equation. It's going to be just like we saw in 5.1, only there won't be a y-intercept there. At least it won't be obvious to you. Right? You're going to follow everything in the same steps that we did before. So the example is, if f of 4 equals 9 and f of -4 equals -7, you want to write the equation. The first thing is, write down the coordinates for your point. We have 4, 9, and -4, -7. In step 1, I calculated the slope. The slope is 2. In step 2, I found the y-intercept by writing y equals 2x plus b, and then substituting one of my points in. I don't like to fool around with negatives. I'm going to use 4 and 9. So I set 9 equal to 2 times 4 plus b, and solve for b. So b equals 1. I wrote the equation. The equation is y equals 2x plus 1. Now, here's the conclusion. You can write an equation for a line in slope-intercept form if you have either any of these things. First, a slope and a y-intercept. That's what we did in the simplest form in 5.1. 2, if you have a slope and a point, you can do it because you're going to calculate the y-intercept. And last, if you have 2 points, because you can calculate the slope and then calculate the y-intercept. Now, in this section, you're going to be looking at some word problems where rate is a pure number, but the domain is given in years. You know, it might be 1981 to 2001, for example. When you do these, Your point x is determined by the number of units from the beginning of the domain. It's not going to be the full year number. And I know this is a little bit confusing, but if you look at this example here at the bottom, if the population of a city increases by 2,000 people per year in the years 1990 to 2000, and you know that in 1995 the population was 850,000, you could write the equation for the line using a slope and 1 point. Now, the slope is easy to see. The 2,000 people per year, remember, rate of change is always slope, so the slope is 2,000. But the point is where students usually go off base here. The point is 850,000, because in 1995, it's 5 years from the beginning of the domain. So you always count the number of years, the number of minutes, the number of hours from the beginning of the domain if the function only holds for a specific domain like that. You cannot use 1995 for the x value here. You have to use 5. So note the 5 rather than the 1995. Now, I have my two pieces of information. I have the slope and I have a point. So I set it up so y equals 2000x plus b. And then I substitute my point. My point is 850,000, and I solve for b. So the equation for this function is actually y equals 2000x plus 840,000. Be careful when you're doing your homework. You're going to see several of these, and you're going to see that it does not work when you start putting, the year 2012 in for value. Take the x value as a number of years from the beginning of the domain, and you will be fine.